Amy and Ian, welcome to the Way of Champions podcast. And let me just start by saying thank you for the amazing work that you are doing in the realm of youth sports, getting good information out to a couple million parents. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you. We're really excited about it. And we're really
Yeah.
excited to be here today.
Yeah, well, there's so many topics. We were talking off camera beforehand just about what we could talk about today, and we had, brainstorm a couple of topics, and any one of which could be an hour. And so we're just gonna visit a few of them and your thoughts on them and what your readers have said to you, and see where we go. But Ian, let me just start with you, kind of give your background and sort of the founding of iSport360. I mean, you and I met right back there in the very, very beginning of it all. You were sponsor of our first ever Way of Champions conference and everything like that. So talk about iSport360 and the journey.
For sure. John, whether you know it or not, our history goes back to 2013 when I read Changing the Game and was inspired by that. I think you were revolutionary in the way you thought about youth sports. And it inspired me to start iSport 360. I'm a sports dad from New Jersey. I have two teenage daughters. I've coached them in every sport. But I also have a background in technology and innovation. So I started a company that I felt would use technology to help coaches and players have a better sports season. I
Mhm.
felt like one of the things I wanted to address in this market was making sure every kid has a great sports season, whether they're new to the sport or they're the most elite player. And I wanted to give them a lot of tools that we use in classrooms to help kids learn and track their progress. I wanted to bring those best practices and tools from the classroom to the ball fields.
Mhm.
But I also, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but back in 2017, again, inspired by a lot of the things I read in your book and heard from you, I started writing a newsletter for sports parents. Every weekend, I would see stuff go down at the ball fields that shocked me.
Yeah.
And I just felt compelled to start writing about it and getting other people with platforms, professional athletes and thought leaders to write for this newsletter, not to call out sports parents for their bad behavior, but more about being empathetic and helpful and informative and even funny at times so we can get through to them and make them be a little more self-aware, a little more on better behavior, give them some tips on how to be better support systems for their young athletes. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit about me and about iSport 360.
Awesome. Perfect. And Amy, how'd you get involved with all this?
So I'm a digital marketer by day and coach and field hockey club owner by night. And I actually stalked Ian when I saw what he was doing with
Mhm.
iSport 360. I thought
Mhm.
there's got to be a way where I can take my love of coaching young girls in field hockey and see if I can help him market the product. I was in like software startup sector. So it ended up being a Venn diagram that worked out really well. So I
Mhm.
stalked Ian on LinkedIn, and then we connected and started working together. And it's been now over 3 years. So
Mhm.
it's been a great ride.
Yeah. And I mean, you have this background as an athlete, as again, a club owner in field hockey, and also with, a daughter playing a top level Division 1 sport as well. Like you wear the coaching hat, you wear the parenting hat, you wear all these different hats. And so, and you experience, I think there's not as many people who experience the world of youth sports, both as a coach and as a parent. And then more than just a team coach, but someone who's running a whole organization. So even when, it's not it's not you're not the cause of the problem, it always ends up with you anyway. So you sort of hear the gamut of things for sure.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of hard when you hear things from different, you hear them from people, umpires, parents, whoever it happens to be. And at the end of the day, it's like just trying to stay grounded and making it all about the kids.
Hmm.
Regardless of what I'm coaching. I coached at the rec level. I started our grassroots program. And so I have a lot of experience there through the club level, and even, getting these kids to play in college.
Hmm.
So it just really has to start with the kids first,
Hmm.
well before the parents. And sometimes, not everybody agrees with that.
All right. Well, let's dive in and I mean, where do you get your ideas from? You've got this newsletter, it's got 4 million readers at this point. Where do you get your ideas from of what are we going to write about this week?
Do you want
Well,
me to
maybe
take?
I'll start, Amy, but I
Yeah.
mean, this is your baby after all. But
Yeah.
I'll just say one thing. There is so much content out there for sports parents. Most of the content are like viral, embarrassing videos about
Hmm.
sports parents on their worst behavior. We
Hmm.
did not want to be a place for people to see that. Instead, we wanted to have a unique voice that was helpful, informative, but also empathetic, right? Like
Hmm.
Amy and I and you, John, we've all been that parent on the sidelines acting like an idiot and trying to figure out what made us do that. And we study that, but we wanted to be uniquely helpful, empathetic, humble. Yes, we're experts in some ways, but we're also imperfect. We're sports parents and coaches who've made mistakes. So that's kind of the voice that we've taken. But I can let Amy talk to you about, the articles and some of the people who also help us.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of ideas come from our weekend experiences.
Hmm.
So I get them from coaching. I had another idea for content after something that happened yesterday at a tournament. It's good, like it's not all negative. It's always like in a kind of goes in a realm of areas. But a lot of things are just whether it's playing time, sideline parents. We talk about being on the B team and trying to get up to the A team. So a lot of things that kids may deal with, like that I've seen kids deal with, that Ian has as a coach. We're all coaches at iSport360 at some point in our careers. And I talk to a lot of people within my network. So we read a lot. So we just kind of have a bit of a pulse on what's popular. We also
Hmm.
talk about like wellness, whether it's mental health, because that, as a coach, I sometimes feel like a counselor a lot of
Yeah.
times, where I'm, know things about some of these kids that a lot of other people don't. So I can just keep an eye on them in some cases. So yeah, the topics run from, athlete well-being, and that could be, like I said, sleep, mental health, et cetera, nutrition,
Hmm.
hydration. And then some of the other topics that I mentioned that are usually pretty popular around playing time, when parents may get a bit more involved, or sideline behavior. We talk and see a lot of those things online, but we try to keep it to the point where, like, here are some more tips of how to handle it. Um, than, oh, you're a bad parent today. We
Right.
know that when people are passionate and care about their kids. So it's just kind of like, how can we help channel that a bit?
Yeah. What's interesting is, I just got back. I was speaking at a state soccer association AGM. And, if you ask people, coaches, league administrators to complete the sentence, parents are dot, 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 right? You get, it runs the gamut, right?
Mhm.
But there's a lot of crazy, unrealistic, whatever. But I always kind of break it down, like, really, like, what percentage of parents are crazy or really, most of them are fine. Like, they get it. They just love their kids. Sometimes they love them in unhelpful ways. And but they're coming from a good place. And we can't ignore them all because of a few crazy ones. Because there's some crazy ones. What are your thoughts on that? Either one of you.
I would say, John, it's not a question of what percent of the parents are crazy, but after studying with psychologists and trying to understand this phenomenon, I would say, what percent of the time are parents crazy?
Hmm. That's a
Okay, I
good
think we're
nuance.
all
Yeah.
normal. It's
Yeah.
just, why, when we get to a soccer field or a basketball court or a field hockey field, why do we sometimes lose control of what's coming out of our mouth and lose control of our actions? And I think that's the part that we like to study and we like to help provide some guidance about, because sometimes even parents shock themselves at how crazy they were during a play or during a loss or during that overtime. or when the ref made that call. And we need to understand that moment, because that's the pivotal moment when we can help parents kind of change their behavior.
Yeah. 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 And Amy, I'll let you comment on that. But I think it's a really good way to put it of like, yeah, like, wait a sec, you sing in the church choir. Like, what's going on? Right. And all of a sudden you're watching this game and it's just, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? And so yeah, I like that nuance of how many moments. I mean, there are some people who are consistently worse than others. But I also think it's what we as a club, what we as a coach and a team put up with as well, right? Like if we clamp down, if we're really educating our parents and giving them, these are the standards that if you want to be part of this team, you have to meet a parenting standard as well of how we treat officials, how we behave on the sidelines, how we cheer for our team and whatever. I think when you sort of pull people aside and be like, what you're doing, it's not going to keep you here. Most people get on board, don't they, Amy?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. And I think I think there's probably two things. One is just being, having direct communication with parents around expectations. And I'm always happy to, it's just easier, to be honest, like to
Mhm.
have those direct conversations. And 99% of the families and the kids already get it, but the parents fully understand. And then I think it's just, that expectation of behavior at games to umpires and officials that like we expect. I haven't had this in a while, but when I first started the club, I've asked people to leave
Yeah.
because of their behavior. And it was maybe like I think it was one family, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, I think your daughter's probably better off somewhere else, because I don't think this is the right place for her. And they were a bit taken back by it. But it was, it was like, listen, we're only here once. Let's make this a great experience for everybody involved. And that looks like X, Y, and Z. So yeah, I would agree with
And,
what
and
you're.
and in my experience, when you do that, right, everyone else on the team who hasn't said anything is like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Like they're happy, right?
Yeah.
And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you attract more, let's just call them good people, lack of a better word, to
Yeah.
your team, to your club. Like, well, this is a club that doesn't put up with this kind of stuff. This is a club that has high expectations. And then, yeah, you meet those parents who sort of are like, well, what do you mean we're leaving? Like, you know how good my daughter is? And you're like, there's really no such thing as an elite 12-year-old. Like,
Yeah.
go ahead, hit the road. Like, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's more to it. Like then you add in the whole culture piece, and that's what you're trying to really instill.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ian, when you started writing this newsletter, when did you know it was really like taken off? Like what was the topic, or what was the first one that you wrote where all of a sudden you're like, wow, I got a lot of replies or a lot of shares or anything like that? Do you remember back? Because I remember mine that like took me from beyond just my mom and her friends reading it to like something beyond.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm embarrassed, but probably some of the early articles were really extensions of some of the things you talk about in your book, like the topic of fun versus winning.
Mm,
Every parent always says, I just want my kid to have fun, just want my kid to have fun. One
mhm,
of my first articles that I wrote was about how you show me a team that loses the first 5 games,
mhm,
and you're gonna see parents losing their minds, even though
mhm,
they all said, I just want to do this so my kid has fun.
mhm,
But like when your kid starts losing and losing and having poor performances, as a parent you really start to lose it. So I remember writing an article about that. We did a great article. I had some help. We did a great article on the terror of tryout season.
mm,
I like, even in my own experiences with my own kids, just the parents are so nervous at tryout time of the year. The kids are nervous, the coaches are nervous, the administrators are nervous. Everyone is really terrorized by those few weeks and waiting to see what's going to happen, because really no one communicates, right? No one
mhm,
sets any expectations, talks about how things are going to work. And those are some of the things that iSport360 helps with. But really, if you ask me for one moment in time when I realized It had gone beyond just my immediate circle. I remember going to a conference, a youth sports conference. It could have been like the Aspen Institute Summit or the Junior NBA Summit. And I walked up to someone, and after speaking to them for a minute or two, I said, I have a company, iSport360, and I write the newsletter. And this guy hugged me and he said, "Oh my God, I get your newsletter every week. I love that." So, all right, that was kind of nice.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, Amy, like those two topics right there as a club owner and a coach are huge ones. And maybe let's start with tryouts, because I know as a coach as well, I don't know any coach who's like, yes, tryouts. Can't wait to really severely disappoint some people, and and like it's the most stressful time of year. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's always tough pressing that send button on the team invites. We a couple years ago, I'm like very direct. So and Ian could attest to that just for my daytime job too. So I developed a rubric just for my club, expectations. I call the teams A, B, and C. I don't have like we have like some fun names, but people know exactly what team their kid is on because I think everybody should just know that.
Yeah,
And
when it's like red and white and
yeah, like nobody
blue.
knows what that is. They're like,
Well,
is
because
that
we
the
don't
A?
want to
I'm
say
like,
it's the
yeah,
B team. Like
right.
everyone
I
knows
say
that.
that actually now, and actually, I think people like it. No one's complained about it. I've been doing that for a couple years. I
Yeah.
think everyone just knows where they're at. They also know it's a meritocracy. So
Hmm.
kids have moved up. We've explained that. We've showed that. I say here, this person was on this team. They even moved up an age level if we think that's good for them. So I think it's just important to um it's still a nerve-wracking experience
Hmm.
for the players and families, so we understand that, and I think it's just a matter of making sure that when you're going through the tryouts that you're controlling what you can control, which all the coaching cliches fall into this, and then just having that, like those set expectations, which is one of the reasons I stalked Ian because of the tryout part of the platform. The player evaluation tool was huge for
Hmm.
tryouts even during the season. So it's like it's those pieces that make something that's extremely stressful make it a little bit less.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And so, I mean, one of the things that I've seen that I feel like maybe didn't happen as much when I was growing up when it comes to tryouts is sort of the constant hedging your bets, right? Like the sort of lack of loyalty to an organization. And so we're going to try out these three places. Like, really, like you've been with us 4 years, you've gotten way better, right? You love your team. You have a great coach, treats you well. And, it's just sort of this, you know, oh, well, we got to try out these other things just in case. And oftentimes, like those kids a year later come back and they're beat up and they're miserable and, they thought the grass was greener and, you know, it was a brush fire.
I
Yeah.
think the greatest metric of success for a coach these days is how long can you keep your team together.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Wins will come, loses will come.
Hmm.
But like I coached my daughter's travel soccer team from the time she was 7 until the time she was 17. And like, honestly, it's one of the things I'm most proud of because of what you just said. There were so many times when we were on the verge of collapsing. A
Hmm.
bunch of girls were trying out for other teams, or we had really, a real losing season, or we lost our goalkeeper, and everyone is worried. But to keep a team together, it's hard. So to be fair to those parents, John, who are taking their kids to try out at other places, a lot of times it's because they don't have faith that this team or this club is going to be healthy.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a
Hmm.
bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's sometimes it's catch 22, and it's also a situation where like I think great clubs also promote people, right? Like Amy, you were saying, hey, if you're the best player on the A team in your age, we should be moving you up in age,
Yeah,
right? Not
absolutely.
keeping you back so that we can win a state championship or whatever it is. It's like we want to promote you. And sometimes kids outgrow our club, right? We're a
Yep.
community club. We should promote that kid and say, congratulations, we've done everything we can. How can we help you move on,
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that. What I see is sort of the um, assumption that there's something better, but very little research done by parents into where are you going, right? So here's the thing that you know, and there's all these good things, and of course there's a few bad things, but where are you going? I mean, you do more research on the plumber to come leak your, fix your leaky sink than you
Yeah.
do on the
Right.
person that you're putting in charge of your son or your daughter for the next 12 months, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, um, there's a lot of rigor that goes into just, I loved what you said about just promoting players, and I've had those conversations where kids, and I may be having a conversation with somebody that's on my U16 team where we may be out, she may outgrow us, I meant. And I'm okay with that because it's about her development and her getting better. And if that can happen somewhere else, then by all means, I've done that. She would probably be the third player that I've done that with,
Mhm,
where we're not for everybody, and there is that point where like some like a high level elite players need to, maybe have to go somewhere else.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. So what about fun versus winning? I mean, I get a lot of this, and maybe I changed the word winning with competition, right? So competing versus fun, and I get a lot of parents who will. I mean, I had a call today where someone said, we just need to move out of this league as a really young kid and into your program because they're just having fun there, and we just want to learn and do. And I'm like, fun's not a bad thing. Like it's, like and actually competitiveness and fun go hand in hand. Please watch Steph Curry play basketball, right?
Yep.
Please watch the best athletes. There's a lot of joy. It doesn't mean it's not hard, doesn't mean it's not challenging. Um, but if you're thinking that the path forward is to strip out all the fun or the joy or whatever you want to, whatever word you want to use, that's usually a quick path to your kid going to be quitting.
Yep. Yeah,
I think you
absolutely.
just mentioned. Yeah, go ahead, Amy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like spot on with that. I mean, it's a sport. We should be having fun. And I absolutely agree, John. Like it's not everything's going to be easy. A lot of times when you push just like some of the younger, like my younger kids, you push them just a little bit and then they see they're actually able to do that thing a week later. They're like, "Oh my gosh," and they light up. And I mean, we have to keep it fun and light and or they're not going to play. And there's just too many benefits to playing youth sports, all
Hmm.
of the life lessons that we can probably have a whole nother podcast on about that topic that just go hand in hand. So I just think it's really, I like the, being able to compete and having fun. My daughter does that at the level that she's playing at. And
Hmm.
that's how it should be. You want to instill a love of the game, and you want that love to carry them as long as they want to play.
Hmm. Hmm. Ian, go ahead.
I think yeah, I just took some notes while you were introducing this part of the conversation because I think I wish coaches were taught this in all of their coach trainings, but I think if you can make sure that the kids are having fun and competing and you're building the love of the game and they're improving their skills, I think that applies to every recreation player, every travel player, every elite player, every academy player. And as a businessman, like when I started this company, I wanted to think about how can we appeal to the biggest possible audience, not just the most elite players.
Hmm.
But I think if you can help kids in those four areas, you have a successful season. Whatever the
Hmm.
win column says, you have a successful season.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, amen to that. Um, what what do you think uh is the biggest issue or the biggest cause or causes of driving sort of the psychology of today's sport parent, right? And the sport parent is also the school parent trying to get their kid into a college or whatever. What do you think is the biggest underlying causes that maybe cause them to behave in ways that they might not be proud of 5 years from now?
You know, John, when I read your book 10 years ago, I absolutely agreed with the idea that the expectation gap on scholarships was really
Mm-hmm.
the biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
Your statistic, if I remember correctly, said 1 in 1,000 kids gets a sports scholarship to college, and 40% of parents believe that their child has scholarship potential.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I see that as much now. I mean, it's definitely still happening, and there's so many companies that will help your kid get recruited. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting that in parentheses,
Mm-hmm.
in quotation marks. I think today the biggest problem is FOMO.
Yeah.
Because if I look at my suburban New Jersey neighborhood here, where people spend a lot of money on kids' sports, if one kid on the team starts getting some extra training with the coach, everybody else
Yeah.
thinks they need to get that training.
Yeah.
If one kid is considering trying out for the quote unquote academy program nearby, everyone else thinks if they stick around on this team, they're going to be left behind. They need to go try out.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think FOMO amongst parents is the biggest issue today.
Yeah. I think that, and just fear of missing out for anyone who doesn't know the acronym, but yeah,
Oh, thank
I
you.
would,
Yes.
I would say yes. Amy, you agree? Anything to add to
Agree.
that?
Yeah, I mean, probably the one thing I think definitely FOMO. I think the other piece of it is just social media. So
Mm-hmm.
what they see online with everybody else's kid, they may feel like they need their kid to match up. So I think it probably aligns to what Ian's talking about. And I think there's also a piece of, and I had this conversation with a parent, that not a field hockey parent, different sport, but where her daughter loves a lot of sports.
Mm-hmm.
And she's really worried that she won't be as good of a soccer player as some of these other kids. Like she's having a bit of FOMO, but her daughter really wants to play basketball and lacrosse too.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in middle school, so she's at this age where she's like really struggling with, should I really be helping her just focus on soccer? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to talk to your daughter and see what she really wants to do. Like what does she want? And I think and so then it just like kind of reset the mom a bit
Yeah.
to focus on what the kid wants at the end of the
And
day.
as you know, I mean, and what is her level of, let's call it, athletic intelligence that allows her to do more stuff, right? Some kids can get away with playing three sports straight through high school, right? I coached a girl who won 12 varsity letters, 4 for soccer, 4 for basketball, and 4 for golf. And then she went and
Wow.
played in the Pac-12 for 4 years, then went and played a year of professional soccer in Europe, decided she was done with soccer, went back to a Division II school where she got a scholarship to get her master's and played basketball and golf, right?
Right.
And it's like she could do it. Not every kid can do that. And so, like, be honest about your kid's ability. Some kids, if they want to make that high school varsity soccer team, might have to, in middle school, not go all in on soccer, but mostly in, whereas
Yep.
another kid is going to be able to, just excel at three things because they got better genetics than you gave your kid. No offense,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, spot on. It's just like resetting the expectations. Like if this is what you want, then okay, you're gonna need to do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't, okay, then that's okay. You just have to be okay with wherever you're at with that one sport. So
And I think that's a great role for parents as well. Like you're supposed to be the one of the perspective,
mhm,
right? So if your daughter wants to play soccer at University of North Carolina, well, what is everyone who's being recruited by UNC doing? And they're probably, most of them, 99.9%, are not playing three sports, and they're on a youth national team, and they're working with private coaches, and they're out there 5-6 days a week, and they're doing strength and conditioning and whatever. So your kid saying, I want to play at UNC, but you don't pick up a ball outside your 3-team practices a week, you're not going to UNC.
right.
No offense. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
Right. And so, and I think parents sometimes don't want to hear that. I think, sometimes I think coaches see kids for where they are and parents see them for what they think they could be or should be. And that's can be problematic. Let's just leave it at that.
John, we wrote a couple of articles on the topic you just mentioned, the kids taking extra touches in between practice.
Hmm.
Two contradicting articles. One
Hmm.
article I remember was about overscheduled kids
Hmm.
and why that's a good thing. I think we actually had a contributor who helped us with this article that
The
keeping
Tiger
kids
Moms.
really Yes.
Yeah.
That wasn't who wrote the article, but we were talking about how overscheduled kids don't have time to get into trouble. So
Mm-hmm.
let's keep the kids busy with lots of activities. We know where they are. That's good. But then I remember during the pandemic when we were in lockdown, we also wrote an article about how beautiful this is that kids don't have sports to go play with school or with their club. And instead, they're out in the backyard or they're at the park with friends and they're playing pickup games.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing, working on their own individual skills, which I thought for a moment during COVID was really nice, and kids were just taking it upon themselves to grab the basketball, go in the driveway,
Mm-hmm.
and shoot some hoops. So I don't know what the right answer is there actually, but we've explored both sides of that coin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I tend to fall on the side of giving kids space in their calendar because and I mean, I think a lot of parents get scared, oh, my kid's bored. Like bored is good. Bored is
Mhm.
where creativity comes from. And if your kid wants to be great at basketball, bored means they're going to go shoot hoops. If they're bored and they don't ever go shoot hoops, they're probably not going to be great at basketball, which is totally fine.
Yep.
It's not
Right.
that's not a problem. That's okay. Um, yeah, we talked about scholarships here and stuff like that. And one of the things you guys talk about is just this idea of empowering kids or giving them autonomy, right, to chase after their journey. And I think this is one of the most important things that we can do via newsletters or, as a coach to parents, like let your kids set some goals, know what their goals are, help support their goals rather than trying to determine them for them. Because when kids are empowered like that, Amy, I mean, that's, you've seen many kids go on and play at a high level just in your club and probably in you as well. Like, um, that's when they take it and run with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think it's important that each kid's journey is their journey and no one else's. And they do have to own it. And they do have to feel empowered to make those decisions. And they do need a bit of perspective from, their coach, and their parent needs to be involved too when they're trying to like, get to the next level. And that there's 3 divisions and there's club and there's a lot of opportunities to play sports at the next level. But I think it's just important um, for that journey to be theirs. There's too many times I hear kids watching everybody else on social media and thinking, well, I have to play Division 1 because I saw that kid.
Mhm.
And it's really not and there's so much more to college than just the one sport, that we try to just like make sure and guide that it has to be what they want.
Mhm. Yeah. Ian, anything to add there?
Yeah, empowerment is an important topic for us. And when we created the iSport360 app, and I would, tell people I have this new app, and coaches and kids can communicate directly, and coaches can share feedback directly with kids of all ages. Everyone said to me, "Oh my God, you can't do that. You have to be so careful with child privacy laws and safe sport requirements." And so once we got those two things addressed, it was like a novel idea that coaches were giving feedback to an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, because typically the coach tells the parent,
Hmm.
and the parent sometimes tells the kid, sometimes forgets, or maybe the parent filters things and puts it in their own words. And we just felt like kids need to have ownership over
Hmm.
their own journey. And in order to do that, they need to be able to get feedback from coach and incorporate it into their routine, and even ask coach questions directly. Like if they want to talk about playing time, yeah, I don't care, even if your child is 10 years old, they should go to coach and discuss this topic, maybe with the parent next to them. But
Hmm.
this is a conversation between coach and player, not for a parent to be involved in all the time and navigating for the child.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think by the same token, you have a conversation as a coach with an athlete, what's getting translated back to the parent, right? Often, for
True.
some kids, you say 9 great things and work on this, and they go home and mom says, "Well, how'd your meeting with coach go?" He said I suck, and
That's
right.
right.
And it's like, that's not what I said. Right. And so that ability for them to see the feedback or maybe explain, like, do you understand what he means by, go to the kickback wall? Do you understand what he means by you need to, build up your speed and your power, whatever it is, right? So I think that feedback in writing where parents can also see it is, it's just critical.
Yep.
Yeah. What about coaches? How does your newsletter help coaches?
Yeah, we do a lot of articles around coaching tips, like how to work with parents, how to handle tough conversations, how to handle mental health, because we know, like I was saying earlier, that's such a big topic. So a lot of our posts are not just directed towards parents. It really has the youth sports ecosystem in mind when we're writing this, whether it's a club administrator or it's a coach. um Warm-ups too, like how to warm up properly, how to cool down properly, really like injury prevention,
Mhm.
um being able to identify concussions, like, so it kind of runs the gamut. We do like just supporting the iSport360 app with a lot of the tools that we have in there are all about supporting
Uh-huh.
coaches and clubs. So like we pull a lot of those topics because they're so relevant in youth sports and
Mhm.
carry them through to what we write about in the newsletter.
Use the word trust, the power of love and trust in coaching. So what does the word trust mean to you, and how can coaches build trust with their athletes and their parents?
Yeah, I mean, probably obviously it's just showing compassion and empathy. I think was one of the words that Ian used earlier. But really to build trust, it's, the words that a coach says, they have to back up with action. And I'm a big believer in that it has to be about the players
Hmm.
first. It doesn't mean you ignore the parents. I think it's important I think it's just way easier if the parents are part of what's happening at the club or rec level. But I think to build trust, it's not a once and done thing. It's something that happens over time. And so the words that you say are now being put into action matters a lot.
Hmm. Hmm. And I mean, for you all, creating an app, creating a newsletter to be a trusted resource. And that's hard. It's hard in sports because there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, right? And so it's like like, hey, here's some research. Here's how we see it. How do you see it? And I think that's important, right? And I think people appreciate that it's not just, oh, Ian woke up this morning and said, this is what your practice should look like. Like, there's a lot of thought behind it, right? Or Amy woke up this morning and said, this is how you should handle a difficult conversation. No, there's a lot of thought behind it. That's an interesting one, though. What
And
about difficult conversations? Oh, but go ahead. Like, I interrupted. Go ahead, Ian, and then I want to
well,
talk about that.
no, let's put it all together. Difficult conversations, the number of difficult conversations get reduced when a parent believes you love and trust their child. You
Amen.
taught me that, John. Way of Champions. We talked
Mhm.
about that with Jerry Lynch.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, an important part of the app we built was giving coaches a way to let parents and players know that they're thinking about them all the time. So if
Hmm.
it's Saturday night and a coach is on YouTube and they're watching some stuff and they see some good clips, good soccer clips, they can share it with the team so that the kids and parents know, hey, it's Saturday night, but coach was thinking about the team. He
Hmm.
really cares about this team and these players. So I
So
think
let me email him
building,
and talk
yeah,
about playing time. No, I'm joking. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
perhaps,
Yeah.
but really, like
Sometimes I checked
John,
on that.
the playing time conversations come way down when the
Yeah.
parents believe you love and trust their kid. The conversations about, why did you sub my kid out at halftime, or why did you start my player at left mid rather than right mid? All of those tactical questions really decrease and become less important when the parents have faith in this coach, that the coach really cares about their child. So I just think that's super important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call it headed off at the pass. So if
Yeah,
you
right.
identify something like I've done this a lot where I felt like, you know what, I think I need to talk to the parents and just let them know, like, this is the decision I made and why. They may not like it, but at least they know and so I try to do that as much as I can if I sense that I need to. Or I may
Yeah.
pull a player off to, especially the older kids, I may pull them off to the side and I'm like, this is why you're playing defense and not
Hmm.
playing the field right now. And here's
Hmm.
why. The girl, because I did have done this year, and she's like, no, I understand. I got it. Okay, good.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I think a lot of times the older players see it, right? Or they
Yeah.
have a better grasp of their role on the team and how they're contributing because they're at practice every day,
Hmm.
right? They're that. Whereas, mom or dad comes on the weekend and go, why aren't you playing? And like, well, because these other people are better than me, which I'm okay with. Right.
Yep.
And
They
and
get it.
then yeah, and then maybe I want to get better, but yeah. Well, I mean, I want to give you each sort of a last moment to sort of, share some parting thoughts. And then Ian, I'll go with Amy first and then, share your sort of final thoughts or big takeaway that you want the listeners to get. And then also how can people kind of connect with you more and learn more about iSport360. So Amy, for you, like what's the biggest thing that you'd want listeners to take with them from this?
I think, probably everyone's trying to do their absolute best. And I think that, and I truly believe that whether you're a coach or players, we talk a lot about just, putting in as much effort and having a good attitude while you do it. You see that all over social media too, but it really matters because those are the things that we can control, whether we win or lose. The coach is trying to do their best to make it the best experience for your player. The players are trying to do that. The umpires are trying to do that. I truly believe that happens on a regular basis. So I think everybody can just take a little breath sometimes before they make assumptions and just know that there's a lot of people trying to make it a good experience.
Hmm. Ian?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, thank you, John, for all your thought leadership and your guidance over the years. You've really inspired many other people, in addition to us, to take action, not
Hmm.
just talk.
Hmm.
There's a lot of talking that goes on at some of the conferences and the general meetings, but to take action, to put resources behind this, to put money and time is hard, and it's not for everybody. Um, I would love for your listeners to think about a couple of things. First of all, we created an app to help every player and coach have a great sports season. There's a lot of educational features, communications features in there, and that's nice. But I'm really proud of what Amy and my team have done with the newsletter over the last few years. We have built this thing up organically to 4 million readers each month. Um, I think there's a lot of content out there for sports parents, but I really feel like our approach of being empathetic and helpful and funny at times is really making an impact because when I sit at a junior NBA summit or a PCA or an Aspen Institute event, it's the topic of sports parents is
Hmm.
constantly coming up, and no one seems to be able to figure out how to minimize the problem. So the other nice thing about our newsletter, now that we've reached this size audience, we have a lot of thought leaders who are coming to us and offering their great content. So
Hmm.
people like you, people like Asia from I Love to Watch You
Hmm.
Play, or Nick from Reformed Sports Parent, or the
Hmm.
folks at the Aspen Institute, like they're coming to us now and offering us content to be in our newsletter.
Hmm.
That's an amazing change in dynamics.
Hmm.
So I feel like we have a really great resource with a lot of smart people working on this and
Hmm.
making impact on sports parents.
Awesome. So how can people get signed up for that? How can people connect with that?
Go to iSport360.com. You can check out our app, demo the app, or you can go to our blog and certainly read any of our articles or sign up for the newsletter there.
Awesome. Perfect. Great. Do you guys have social as well that we can share? And I'll put it all in the show notes, but
Yeah, we have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn.
just your name, iSport360.
Yep, it's iSport360. Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, both of you, thank you so much, first of all, for what you're doing here. And Ian, from the first time you and I spoke, however, 8-9 years ago, it was also like you told me what you were doing, and I was like, oh, great. Like, we need lots of voices, right? This is not something where one person or one organization can corner the market. Like, yeah, we need lots of voices sharing information, because we know that, I might say something 10 times and people are like, oh, whatever. And then Amy will say it and they'll be like, God, that's brilliant. Thank you, Amy. We're so happy you're here. Right. And so I think it's so important that we are providing parents with good information, solid information, so that they can make good decisions. And so that when they make mistakes, they can tidy up, just like we ask our players to do as well. And so you guys have been a important part of that conversation, and I truly appreciate you both being on the Way of Champions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much for listening. Again, thank you to Ian Goldberg and Amy Masters from iSport360. You can go to iSport360.com, sign up for the newsletter. 4 million parents, can't be wrong. Also on social, just the letter I, Sport360, the number 360, on Instagram and all that fun stuff as well. Thank you to our Patreon podcast champions. Thanks to our friends at Sprocket Sports, amazing supporters of this podcast. Thank you to all of you who have bought books, shared them, rated this podcast, shared it with others, connected with our newsletter, Changing the Game Project, attended our conferences, whatever it is. It's been really incredible, and we truly, truly appreciate everything you've done for us. So just, again, we're so appreciative. You're going to go out there this week, whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach, whether you're a league administrator, make a difference. Use your influence for good, because it's never neutral. We'll see you again next week.